Good afternoon and good morning, Community Action. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Today is the second in a series of webinars. We are pleased to co-host with the National Office of Head Start. There's a lot going on in Head Start right now, and we know we could probably be on the webinar today for a good 3 to 4 hours, but we promise not. I think we've booked an hour, hour and a half or so for the webinar with questions. So we do have quite the panel, as you can see here behind me, to walk us through a number of elements that we think are going to be critical for you to hear as Head Start providers in the community action world. Many of you are familiar with our WebEx system, but in case you're not, you are on mute because we do have a large number of registrants here today, which is really great to see, especially here in the middle of the summer. We know it's a very busy time with vacations and such. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you will see a chat window or a question and answer window. We ask that you put your questions into the space. We will be recording by hand those questions, and we will be providing them to the panel near the end of today's webinar. We want to make sure that each of the panelists has a chance to go through each of their core elements, because we know, again, we could be doing an hour on each of the topics here today. So we are recording today's webinar. We will be posting a recording of this up on our website and sharing it out with all of you, as well as copies of the slides that you see here today. So please know that you will have those in your inbox probably tomorrow in the morning sometime. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ann Linehan, the Deputy Director of the Office of Head Start. She's going to introduce her team that she has here with us today. And we know you've heard and seen many of them on other trainings and other webinars, so we are pleased to bring them here specifically for community action agencies. And again, put those questions into your question and answer box on the lower right-hand side of your screen. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ann, and thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to say that our new director, Dr. Blanca Enriquez, would be here with us today, but she is out in California, I think, visiting a migrant program and attending a regional conference. So we are happy to be back for the second of our quarterly webinars with the community action agencies. We know every day you represent 30% of all the grantees in this country, and we know you make valuable contributions every day to the lives of our children and families. I think it was just a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, I asked Denise, when were we in Portland? And if you can remember at that time, it was sort of a titillating time because we knew that the NPRM was about to drop, and we were unable to say anything. So I know that that's one topic that we will cover today. I am really lucky with everything going on in our office to have 5 of my colleagues here today, and as each one of them presents, I will ask them to introduce themselves. Also, Denise mentioned at the end we will take questions on the topics we've presented, but knowing this audience, we will also get questions on another topic. So we will entertain all and any questions at the end. I'm happy to turn it over to Colleen.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'm Colleen Raskeb, the Director of Policy for the Office of Head Start. And so Ann had asked if I could just do some highlights of the NPRM that she had mentioned that came out just a short while ago. And folks, I hope, have had the opportunity to read the NPRM, to listen to the webinars that is up on the ECLKC. So this was just kind of going to be a real shortened version of some of that, but we really encourage people not only to look at the webinar that Ann and I did, to going through more details of the NPRM, but really to take the time to read it. So the most important thing is folks to read the NPRM and to give us your really, really thoughtful comments on it. This is a period that we are looking to hear from you. And so you really should make sure you look at that and you comment at what's there, not exactly just what I say. So this is a very shortened version of what is in there, but we really do want people to take the time, please, to give us your thoughtful comments on what we have proposed. So as folks know the regulatory process, this is what's called a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. We then, I'm going to walk through a little bit what's in there, and then the next part of the process is you submitting comments so that we can really spend time with those comments and analyze those comments, and then decide what will be that we will be putting out in a final rule. So I want to just talk of the first kind of our overall approach to the NPRM. So what we really tried to do in changing or proposing these changes to Head Start regulations was really to try to improve Head Start quality across all of our programs. So we really looked at the research and the best practice of what was going on in our programs and what the research was telling us about the advances in the last 2 decades of early childhood, about what we could be doing better and how we could drive our regulations to do that. We really wanted to improve how easy it was to understand the programs. So really improving the clarity, making it more transparent so people, both current grantees like you and folks that might be interested in being grantees, really understand better what you have to do if you're going to be a Head Start or early Head Start provider. Also to try to find ways that we could reduce administrative burden without reducing quality so that programs could focus most on what we think are the most important things to do, while at the same time really maintaining Head Start's core principles around strong comprehensive services, parent engagement, serving the neediest children, and respecting diversity. So we hope we got there. That's part of what we want you to comment on ways you think, if you agree with these goals, that we could have done it better or differently. Some of the things you want to flip aside that wanted to talk is a really big change, we think, is strengthening of what we need to do in education. Again, reflecting what many programs are already doing, that the best practices of what's going on in programs and in research just went far beyond what was in our education standards. They haven't been relooked at for about 20 years, and the field has really advanced about what we know should be going on in classrooms. This will look very familiar to a lot of folks if they are involved in the TA Center from the National Quality in Teaching and Learning, the use of curriculums that are really not only research-based but content-rich, that really can strengthen the types of skills we know kids need when they're entering school, to better support teaching and to really make the links between assessment, curriculum, and teaching practices that are all driven, connected with professional development to support our teachers. And Amanda's going to talk a little bit later about how the newly revised outcomes framework that is Birth Plus 5 really fits in and complements the proposed education standards. The other big structural piece, if we turn to the new one, we think in the classrooms, we need to improve what's going on in all classrooms. Again, many classrooms are already doing these things, but to set it as the bar for everyone. But we also know, and we're proposing that that children need to have more exposure to this high-quality learning experiences. And so we are proposing that most children in center-based programs would receive a full school day and a full school year. So for preschoolers, the specifics is we're proposing at least 6 hours a day and at least 180 days a year. For infants and toddlers, as folks know, most early Head Start programs already operate for longer than those minimums, and that has always been, since it started in the 90s, a continuous program by the statute. We had just never codified exactly what we meant by continuous, and so we're proposing in the NPRM to say that the continuous service means at least 6 hours and 230 days a year for infants and toddlers. We also, because it wouldn't work in the 6-hour scenario, double sessions are eliminated as a standard option. So we have 3 standard options in the proposed rule: the center-based for a full school day, full school year, family child care, and for early Head Start, home-based. And then the 4th option we propose is a locally designed option, where programs could operate alternative models if the shorter day, if the shorter year, if home-based for preschoolers made sense in your community, really meeting your needs, and that children were making progress, you'd be able to ask for a locally designed option. So we know this is a big change, and we expect to hear a lot, and we want to hear the reaction from the community on this proposal. We want to lay out a little bit about the rationale that we lay out in the NPRM to go this direction. But we do really encourage you to also, when you read the NPRM, to read the proposed regulatory text, that's kind of the end of it, but also to read what's called the preamble, which is where we articulate why we're making these changes. So this is just a little bit of a summary of what is in the preamble. So right now, only 57% of Head Start children receive services for 6 or more hours a day. So more than half, but less than 2/3. And only about a third, only about 31% receive services for 180 days, for a full school year. So we have a lot of kids that are actually getting almost a 4-month summer break when you're looking at the amount. And we really, children that are getting the minimum, the 128 days and a 3.5-hour day, are actually being exposed to, over the course of a year, less than half the learning time that children would be getting if they were in a full school day and a full school year program. So it's hard to think you could achieve the same kind of outcomes you'd really be looking for with that long of a time between the program and that long of that short of a day. And so a little bit, the next slide talks just a little bit about kind of the big 3 reasons that we're going in this direction. One is there is a mounting body of research that really talks about the full day is important. More dosage, as they call it, is really key to improving child outcomes. So there's research on full day preschool, full day kindergarten, research on the amount of instructional time you need in kind of each of the content areas to really be able to do the kind of intentional work to engage kids in the learning. There's research we talked about on the summer learning loss, how much children, particularly low-income children, lose during the summer, and research on children attending better if it's in longer programs. So we think that there is mounting evidence. There's also pre-K programs that have shown stronger effects. These dosages are more in line with the type of dosages in those pre-K programs. And we also think there's kind of if you're a teacher and you're in a program, and so this, hopefully will resonate with many people, that we just don't think there's sufficient time in the 3.5 hours for the teachers to conduct the full scope of engaging learning activities in small groups and one-on-one and really doing rich, developmental, engaging, but intentional learning activities, and to provide the comprehensive services, the importance of the meals and the snacks and the transitions that go on and the toothbrushing and everything else that we know is important. It's hard to really think you can get that in that amount of time. So that is the direction that we have proposed. It is a proposal. We very much want to hear from the field, the reaction to this, as well as everything else that's in the NPRM. So one other central thing that we do in there is really to look for ways that we can maintain and strengthen our comprehensive services, health and family engagement particularly. Mental health, we look at how we can be more specific about what we want mental health consultants to be doing as opposed to giving you a process, but say, at the end of the day, we think it's important that teachers have access to mental health consultants for certain activities, and then programs figure out how much they need to do, what they need to do there. Similarly, in parent engagement, we're trying to make it less of a paperwork exercise and more programs engaging parents in the services that are necessary. We want to hear kind of how, from the field, how people react to the proposal there. We also are trying to be clearer in health services. You won't see new timelines. Things that you'll see in health services are very familiar, but we're trying to be clearer about the steps, the reasons, and make a few important lists there around health insurance or some things that were less relevant maybe when we last revisited these standards. And then also looking at how programs can really put a system in place to make sure health and safety is maintained so that children are safe. Less about us saying exactly what are the prescriptive safety standards and more about how the program sets up management systems to train staff, to ensure staff are complying, and to really ensure in all the important areas children are safe. And Amanda's going to talk a little bit about another resource that is out that we ask folks to consult with, which is calling Caring for Our Children Basics, that can help programs. It's not a regulation, it's not standards that they have to follow, but it's programs, in order to set up these management systems, it's a good resource that we're both encouraging Head Start programs and states to use. We also, in maintaining core principles of Head Start, really making sure we're supporting all children and improving practices and requirements when we can there. Ensuring that we still have strong services for children with disabilities, but it lines up with what's now in the Act. ensuring that we can improve services for homeless children in ways that the Act asked us to address in the last reauthorization. Similarly, really looking at best practice, what we know from research and best practice in the field about how to support services and improve the learning of dual language learners, really making sure that programs know that supporting the home language for dual language learners is one of the most important things in really bringing them to be able to get English language acquisition, but also for their own development, that dual language is really a strength. Also making sure that individual children are attending. We know how important it is that we actually get children into the classroom, both for later attendance in school, but also so they can get the outcomes while they're in Head Start. And explicitly addressing the expulsion and suspension issue. We know Head Start has been a leader in not using expulsion or suspension in a way that, unfortunately, in some other early childhood programs is not the case. But we think it's very important that we have clear regulations that spell that out so that as we bring new programs in, we can ensure that that kind of long-standing principle is really very, very clear. So the one thing we're not changing, I'm sure as folks have noticed, and we are not at this point in this, as NPRM, proposing any changes to the designation renewal system. So we are in the final year of transition from what had been the indefinite grant period to the 5-year period. We're going to be finishing that transition up next year. We are having an independent evaluation of the DRS system being conducted in ACF, and we will in the future, after that transition occurs and after we have the results of the evaluation, we will be looking at whether we should be reevaluating what we should change in the DRS requirements, but it's not in this proposed rule. And because of that, we are not able to address any comments on DRS. So because we didn't propose anything, it wouldn't be legal for us to then say, well, we didn't tell the world what we were thinking about, which is the comment, the kind of the notice part of the notice and comment process, that the federal government has to give you notice of what they might change, seek your comment, and then make it a final decision. So because we're not changing anything in DRS, there's nothing we could change in the final rule, even if we got overwhelming comments. So we know people still may comment. That is certainly something. People are always able to send us comments, send us letters. There's nothing we can legally do with that in this process. So we hope folks at least really do focus on the things that can actually be influenced in this process, which is all of the sections except for DRS. But again, people can send what they want. So what's next? So public comment is open until August 18th. It is August 18th, I think at midnight, that it closes, and once that closes, there's nothing we can do about it. So like grants.gov, if you don't make it by the deadline, like we're legally bound to not be able to accept any comments after that period. But so don't wait to the last day is what I'm saying. Please don't wait to the last day. But we consider all comments. So we will read and analyze every comment we receive. We go through a process. They will be made public, those comments. We're going to talk about the next slide, really hoping that people can comment electronically. It makes it much easier for us to be able to do the analysis, but it also makes it possible for us to make those comments public. Paper comments is much more cumbersome and difficult for us to be able to make those public. We will try, but again, it will slow down the process significantly. Once we have considered all of the public comments, a final rule will be issued. So in the new program standards will not be effective until the final rule has been issued based on the effective dates that are in that final rule. So the proposal here has said we're proposing that most of the changes would be in effect 60 days after the rule is published, but some of them we're saying they wouldn't be effective for another year. And we've asked for public comments on that. Should there be some changes if you agree with the change, but maybe you think it should be a little slower to go into effect, you can make comments like that. But the one thing we do want people to understand, the current regulations remain in effect until the date the new regulations are effective. So nothing in this rule binds programs to do anything now. It is just that we're looking for your comment. So the next slide is just some some best practices about submitting comments, because we really do want to hear from the field, and we really want to hear from them in a way that we can really inform our process. So read the rules. Don't comment just on what you've heard, what you've seen on a listserv, what you've heard me or Ann or somebody else say. Read the rules. Hopefully, we know it's over the summer, it's not the greatest timing, but hopefully other staff in your programs will also be able to do that. Comment on what's in the rule or what's not in the rule. Things that are totally outside of the rule, like, I don't know, really make it a less effective comment that we can do something about. But if there's something you think we should have considered and we didn't, you can let us know too. But be explicit about what section your comment's relevant to the degree that people can even give the citation, like where it is in the Federal Register, or that we have up there 1305A11. Like, we want you to, like, and give a suggestion. Like, if you think there's something that could be changed to fix your problem, what you think is good or is bad, please be explicit and explain why you agree with something or disagree with something. And
I was thinking about a couple of questions that we got that we couldn't answer, but it reminds me, sort of reinforcing what you're saying. We had a question, how come the preschoolers aren't going to be in school as long as the infants and toddlers? That's not something that we can answer, but if it's your opinion or your input, the preschoolers should go as, so we want what your position is, not necessarily asking a question, because then we really don't know, we would have to assume what you meant. So we want in your comments to know exactly what it is you're objecting to and what your position is.
Right, and what is it that you would think about this rule that's doing something. So kind of universal comments about the importance of quality or the importance of something are less helpful to think, okay, what is it about this rule you think is wrong, right, changing, or isn't in here? So we really hope people can give some serious consideration. There's a website at the bottom here, regulations.gov, but Alana has helpfully pulled some screenshots in the ECLKC that are the next slides that can show you exactly how you can access places where you can read the Federal Register and where you can comment. So if you go to the next slide, you see what's highlighted in blue. If you go under Policy and Regulation, there is a link directly to the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking right at the top. And then we'll show you in the next slide what the page looks like when you click on that. And so it will show you there's a bar to hit for the comment process, to get the webinar, to do other related background pieces. We have some kind of short summaries that people might want to share with their staff or their boards or other pieces that are up there. And also in the next page, if you click on the comment process, if you click on the first one, the Head Start Program Performance Standards, NPRM, it will bring you to this Federal Register page, and you can actually submit your comment from that green box right there. So you can go to that regulations.gov, you can click through the ECLKC, you can, there's links to it, so we want people to be able to easily access it, to read it, and to be able to comment on that. So in the comment process, you can do it by clicking and typing in directly, or you can attach a PDF of a letter, so it's really easy to use. We hope folks can do it. We are accepting paper comments, as I said. It just will make it harder to make those comments public and harder to move the process along, which we're hoping that we're able to quickly turn this around to be able to get a final rule back out.
The only one that you didn't comment on, and I know this is a big overview, and I know that we have community action agencies. We do have delegate agencies. Yeah. If you could just comment on that, because I think that's kind of important, that those that have delegate agencies would be interested in looking at.
So I did just focus more on the kind of the service changes here as opposed to the administrative and financial procedures. So we have a full section of the regs, 1303 now, to get used to our new numbers. It's all the financial and administrative procedures. And one significant, a lot of what we tried to do there was to streamline, reduce things. We really want to hear from programs, especially programs like you, that many of you have a long history of running Head Start programs, of where we got things wrong on that or what we could also eliminate additionally to further reduce administrative burden. But as Ann mentioned, we do have a section about delegating operations to delegate agencies, and that is where we have really removed, we think, a lot of more bureaucratic processes where we had a lot of appeals rights for delegate agencies that came to the federal level. And so lots of procedural timelines of exactly what programs had to do to be able to terminate a contract with a poor-performing delegate agency. We now make the process more that the grantee establishes the process. So the grantee needs to have an appeal process. The decisions have to be based on cost or quality or effectiveness. You can't make arbitrary and capricious decisions that you're getting rid of delegates for arbitrary or capricious reasons, but we put that more on the grantees to establish those processes and try to take the federal government out of that, where we're really not trying to micromanage programs. We think in the world where there's more accountability on grantees, grantees should have more tools to be able to ensure delegate agencies are also, they can hold them accountable. So we'll want to hear certainly from folks about that as well, but it's something we certainly have heard a lot about from agencies that had delegate agencies in lots of the different stakeholder meetings we've had over the last number of years. That was a definitely resounding theme from agency directors and executive directors.
So we will hold the questions until after, but let's punt to Shauna now.
Thanks, Ann. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shauna Pinckney. I'm the Director of our Grants and Contracts Division at the Office of Head Start. I wanted to provide just a few updates, first on the designation renewal system, and then 2 updates on our contracts and cooperative agreement side. So with respect to designation renewal, folks are familiar, on July 1, we made awards for our grantees designated to compete as a part of Cohort 3. We competed about 105 grants in Cohort 3 and awarded 103 grants as a result of that competition. So all grantees as a result of Cohort 3 now have their 5-year grant awards. And as a reminder, designation renewal system really supports 2 groups of grantees. It supports the grantees that get their 5-year grant back non-competitively, meaning that they did not meet one of the 7 quality conditions. And then if you are a grantee that does meet one of those conditions, you are required to compete. So we've completed Cohort 3. We're moving into Cohort 4. All of the service areas that will be in competition in the next few months have been posted to the HHS Grants Forecast website. So those opportunities are forecasted. Folks can visit that website to see the service areas that will be available, as well as the amount of federal funds and the proposed or expected number of awards we may make as a result of a competition. So that information is publicly available. We have 89 grantees or service areas that will be competed in Cohort 4, and we would expect to post those funding opportunity announcements this fall. So you should look on grants.gov or on our acf.hhs.gov website to view those funding opportunity announcements. Moving over to our cooperative agreement side, we have some exciting funding opportunity announcements currently available for folks to submit application to that are part of the larger ACF-TA transformation. This is a big transformation of our TA system where we're really trying to leverage and bring together resources across both Head Start and child care to better support the early childhood field overall. So we have 6 cooperative agreement funding opportunity announcements available currently. They are to support health and wellness, development, teaching, and learning, and that supports the broad spectrum of ages of children from infants and toddlers, including preschoolers. We have parent, family, and community engagement, quality assurance, after-school and summer enrichment, and our program management and fiscal operations. You'll notice if you are viewing these cooperative agreement funding opportunity announcements, many of the 6 opportunities posted are jointly administered and jointly funded with both the Offices of Head Start and the Office of Child Care. And so we're excited about the opportunity to work together in support of early childhood broadly in the community. Those funding opportunity announcements close very soon, so hopefully you've already been working on your applications. Please don't wait to submit. If you are applying, wait until the last minute. The applications close on the 23rd of July, and we will be looking to make awards before the end of this fiscal year. So moving very quickly to make awards of those cooperative agreements as part of our larger TA transformation. And then also on July 1, we awarded the other component of our transformation, which is our regional-based TNTA contracts. And you'll be familiar with the types of services that these contracts provide, a series of supports to grantees in addition to the direct funded TA dollars that you receive. So the regional contracts that we've just re-awarded on July 1 include your infant and toddler specialist, your early childhood specialist, and your grantee specialist. So we wanted to make sure in moving forward with the transformation that the current work that these specialists are providing to you in terms of supporting your overall grant compliance, being able to address findings that you're receiving through our monitoring system, supporting you in class and school readiness goals, all of the objectives that we're asking you to meet as grantees, that is aligned both through our regional-based contracts and the resources that we provide to you there, and that they align through our national TA centers and the 6 that are currently available that we are looking forward to awarding at the end of this fiscal year. So that's just a brief update on our grants and contracts, and I'll turn it over to Amanda.
Can I ask you one question? You may have said it, and I just may have missed it. The funding announcements that you have forecasted for the cohort 4, will they all be birth to 5?
The majority of the funding opportunity announcements will be posted as birth to 5 opportunities, and what we mean by that is we really like to hear from applicants and tell us, based on the need in the community, what ages of children you feel the community needs the most support in through either Head Start or Early Head Start. So if it is a birth to 5 announcement, it will say Head Start and or Early Head Start for the respective service area. You have an opportunity to tell us how you are proposing to use the funds in support of the community. There are some funding opportunity announcements that are solely for Early Head Start funding or solely for Head Start funding, but that will also be clearly delineated in the title of the funding opportunity announcement.
Okay, thank you.
Amanda.
Well, thank you, Shauna. I really feel very privileged to be with you all this afternoon. My name is Amanda Bryans. I'm the Director of the Education and Comprehensive Services Division in the Office of Head Start. I feel like we're giving you a lot in a short amount of time, so if you want to take a deep breath and stand up and stretch, you can, because you're at your computers and nobody will know. So go ahead and do that. And I'll just talk a little bit. I wanted to give a really brief overview of the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. This framework replaces the previous framework. The new one was published in June 2015, and it was on the same day as the NPRM, and that was because, as my colleague Colleen mentioned, it is meant to work in conjunction with the Head Start performance standards. It includes, for the first time, children from birth to 5 years old. This was really important. It took a lot of work because the research, frankly, is in very different places for infants and toddlers and preschoolers, but we recognize that more and more of our programs, I think it's 45% are serving children from birth to 5 in a single grantee. And importantly, we also know the way children develop is not always according to their chronological age. In fact, almost none of them do, right? Some kids who are 36-month-old do some skills more like a 48-month-old and other skills more like a 24-month-old. So we need to have a full continuum of development so that teachers can really do an effective job individualizing for children. We think that this framework, our new framework, also reflects the latest research, science, and best practice. There's been an explosion in the area of early learning over the last decade, and it really has a tremendous amount of momentum. What we know is changing every day, and we think that the framework needs to be flexible so that it can be used in a way that is going to reflect the ongoing research. And this framework really talks about what children should know and do certain developmental periods. And so the NPRM talks about what our programs need to do in terms of the education services that we think will best support children's development. And this framework describes what we want the children to actually know and do that research shows us is linked with their success later on. Importantly, you need to know how to find the framework. So the next slide shows you exactly where the framework is on the ECLKC. Or not. Ooh, that's actually the wrong PowerPoint, but that's okay. So there was a different set of slides on the thumb drive that is much shorter.
While we're changing up, one thing that I do want to make a distinction between.
Yes.
Even though the NPRM and the framework were published the same day, and I think you referred to the framework as supporting or aligned with or complementing.
I think complementing is the best word.
Standards. But the framework, in fact, is applicable today, where Colleen made the distinction, you know, the proposed standards will only become final when they can become final, but the framework is something that is applicable now.
That's right, Ann, and that's a great distinction. The framework is authorized in the Head Start Act, and there are certain requirements that programs have with regard to the framework. For example, that programs have school readiness goals that are aligned to the framework. So this new framework replaces the old one. It doesn't require, we didn't have to publish it for comment. We published it as a finished framework after a lot of consultation with experts in the field, including practitioners and the leading experts in the various domains of child development, and it is in effect. And so this next slide shows you exactly where to find the framework. Right now, it is on the front page of the ECLKC, and it is right where that arrow points. You can click on it, and you will get to it. Later, there will be, you can look under About Head Start, and then you can click on the tab that says About Head Start, and then click on the School Readiness tab and Frameworks and be able to see it that way. But we imagine that it'll stay on the front page for a long time, and also the ECLKC is very searchable. Okay, the next slide, I wanted to really briefly give you some idea about using the framework. We think that community action agencies that are Head Start grantees, it's really critical that they understand how the framework is going to be kind of institutionalized in the program. There's a very important leadership role with regard to the framework. I mentioned in terms of school readiness goals. We think that program decision-making related to curriculum, assessment, ongoing quality improvement, and implementing evidence-based teaching practices that promote positive child outcomes are all related to the use of this framework. So to the extent that executive directors are participants on governing boards and are providing supervision to Head Start directors, it's really important that they understand how this framework should be used in the program. The framework should help teachers plan instruction, design opportunities for children to learn, play, explore, discover, and form relationships in a positive and stimulating environment. And the framework can help programs conduct classroom observations and provide coaching that supports teaching and learning. So really related to the professional development of the staff. Just a couple words about where to start. We first want to say the framework by itself is not a curriculum, an assessment, or a checklist. We think people might be tempted when they look at the developmental progressions, which are where we really describe how it happens, that the scaffolding or cascading of skills and abilities that kids have and knowledge. They could say, oh, I can just use this. I'll make a table and I'll check off when all of my 20 kids do each of these things. That would not be an appropriate use of the framework. The framework needs to be aligned with a curriculum that has really strong, rich domains that will support children's outcomes, and similarly, programs need to use an assessment system that's valid and reliable, and again, really reflects what children are learning through the curriculum. So we published, along with the framework, a document called Getting Started with the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework, and it's a trifold document, and it is quite, I think, accessible and can give you kind of the top line messages about where to go next. So just in case you're not retaining every word that I'm speaking here. And we want to reassure you that we expect and understand that it'll take a year before programs fully implement and transition to the new framework. And that's because we don't expect you to take a cursory look at your existing curriculum and throw it away because you don't think it covers math in enough detail, because we recognize that the decision about a curriculum includes many things. There are budget decisions, there are staff training decisions, sometimes there are considerations about materials. All of those decisions and planning need to occur. So what we really want you to do is start out reading, getting started, look at the framework, and begin the work around having the key people together, making the plan, identifying what you do need to change, what you don't need to change, and what your timeline is.
And Amanda, when you talk about decision making, to me this is such an important aspect of the work that community actions do, caring for the children, that this meaningful, intentional approach to providing services, I think is a board issue also. And I think that because as I was listening to him, thinking, curriculum sounds like such a teacher thing. But if they don't understand the why, then they don't understand the link to outcomes, and they don't understand the budgetary and the professional development commitments. So, and I know that CAP agencies have very robust boards, but I think boards need to have discussions about this and need to understand why it's so important.
You're right, Ann. I mean, it's so important that they really understand it, because we've asked that boards think about child assessment data. The programs are required to aggregate information about how children are doing through assessment data, and to analyze it and to share that with boards of directors so that the board has a good understanding of how children are progressing towards school readiness goals, and they have an important role to play in program planning and quality improvement with regard to that. So absolutely, I would consider the framework kind of the hub of all of that when you're thinking about curriculum, child assessment, reporting progress, making program improvements. All of that is sort of can be rooted in this framework. So really good point. And now I just wanted to make a slight transition to talk about another topic, which is caring for our children basics. So Colleen mentioned that this document it was recently published by the Administration for Children and Families, the Office of Child Care, the Office of Head Start were involved, the American Academy of Pediatrics, our colleagues at the Maternal and Child Health Bureau. This document, and Colleen, you can help me if I get in trouble here, but I think we kind of parallel it in our Head Start regulations. And the idea is that we have mandatory standards in Head Start about health and safety. Caring for our children basics is something that can be used, it's not mandatory, but it's a resource that can be used by states or by any child care provider that really spells out kind of what we would consider minimum health and safety requirements, the things that we think that no matter where you are in America, if you bring your child to a care situation, whether it's family child care or center-based care, you can be sure that these things will be in place.
And for those that have the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership grants, this seems to me to be an invaluable tool that every child care provider, be it family child care or center-based, would want to have.
Yeah, beyond, so that they have requirements for the children in the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership, but there are other children in the Child Care Partnership also, and so having those, providing this kind of information to those grantees for all children would be really important. And this also is going to be really helpful to Head Start programs, because as they look at our regulations eventually when they become final and they say, gosh, we're not sure we're really doing this, we'd like to know a little bit more about how to implement it, this document will be a tremendous resource. So we're hopeful that this will promote kind of this basic level of health and safety throughout all settings. We also hope it could support the efficiency of monitoring systems, so we would get a little less in the future, maybe as this is more widely adopted, a single visit from any entity finding, that a program was compliant, maybe we wouldn't have to do a kind of duplicate monitoring of those items. So
I think the other issue, if I could just say, that speaks to the national leadership, and when we say they're basics and we say it's sort of the floor, what we want to say is the floor is uneven across states, and in some cases it's much lower. So we're actually, while basic, we're saying we're raising the bar. It's basic, but we're raising the bar from where it is in some places across the United States.
Again, tremendously important. We are aware of states, which of course we won't name, where somebody said to me, you just have to be 18 and breathing to be taking care of children. I read a disturbing media clip just today about a baby that died in care, who maybe could have been saved if the providers had some basic CPR training. So, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit in the next slide about what's included. This is my last slide, I promise. And that is there are requirements around staffing, some activities for healthy child development, making sure that kids are not plugged into TVs for 8 or 10 hours a day, health promotion and protection, nutrition and food service. We saw another media clip recently where children got some kind of staph infection from food that they consumed at their child care center, not knowing that that center did anything unsafe necessarily, but again, some pretty basic protections around health, food safety, facilities, supplies, equipment, and environmental health, play areas, playgrounds, and transportation. I cannot resist saying there are each summer a number of tragedies around children being left unattended in vehicles and dying of heat stroke, infectious disease, and then the policies that programs should have in place to really protect the health and safety of children. And I'm really happy for this short amount of time with you all. I worked in a community action program, Head Start, for over 10 years, and it's just a thrill to be with you today. And I'm very happy to turn it over now to my colleague, Ross.
And I'm going to say something before Ross introduces himself, because Ross is known as the monitoring man. It's true. But today he's got a split personality, which happens most every day. But today is a split personality because he's going to be talking about monitoring, one hat, and then the other person, who's also Ross, is going to be talking about some of the efforts around the baseline visits as it relates to the Early Head Start Child Care Partnerships. But I want to make that distinction. There's a monitoring discussion, and then there's some comments about the baseline.
Great. Thanks, Ann. I'm Ross Weaver. I'm the Quality Assurance Division Director at the Office of Head Start. And last year, just about a year ago, when we had our webinar with you, we talked about the aligned monitoring system, which was a significant change from what we had been doing. It was moving away from triennial reviews, which were done once every 3 years, to really looking at a monitoring system where there would be monitoring events each of the first 3 years. And they would be shortened, 1, 2, 3-day events, depending on what the topic was. In 2015, fiscal year 2015, we did 2 protocols with grantees, the Environmental Health and Safety Protocol and the Fiscal ERSI, which is the enrollment, selection, recruitment, selection, enrollment, and attendance. That's close. That's close, right? And I also want to say, before I go too much farther, that for those people in California that haven't yet had lunch, forget what the reference that Amanda made to staph infection and foods and everything. Just enjoy your lunch. You know? In 2015, through April of 2015, we completed 776 review of grantees, of which, as Ann said earlier, about a third nationally of our grantees are with community action, and of that 776, about a third, 235, were reviews of community action agencies. Roughly, and again, this changes, but it's so far through the end of April, roughly 44% of the community action agencies were compliant, fully compliant in their reviews. About 45% had some areas of noncompliance. About 10% were identified with deficiencies. In 2016, what we will be doing is adding the final 2 protocols. I should also say in 2015, we also did class reviews for Head Start programs. Those 3 will continue through 2016 and after. And we'll be adding 2 new protocols in 2016. One is the Comprehensive Services School Readiness, and the other is Leadership, Governance, and Management Systems. And I think what I want to just comment briefly on for the Leadership, Governance, and Management System is what Ann talked about when she mentioned that really leadership begins at the governing body and with management and with policy council, all working together to be able to have the information and knowledge so that you can provide the effective oversight of your program at the local level. You will see in the protocol that is coming out for the Leadership, Governance, and Management Systems that there are 4 key performance areas, and all of those will look at how leadership is really functioning within a particular agency. How effective is it, and how can we, and what areas need to be strengthened. In the communities, comprehensive services and school readiness, we'll be looking at how programs are engaging families, how children, and in the framework that Amanda talked about, how teacher-child interaction and how programs are really making progress in the way of working with both children and families. I guess one of the things that I would want to just refresh people's memory of last year when we were here and then afterwards, there was a lot of discussion around whether or not, when we did the environmental health and safety, we also looked at life safety codes, and those became actually a lightning rod for many grantees of how were we going to look at life safety codes, and were we going to be calling programs out of compliance for that because they weren't regulations. And as we said consistently, that those would not be looked at, and I hope that those grantees that would not be looked at in terms of compliance or non-compliance, but rather to be looked at as areas that could be strengthened or at least a grantee should be aware of. I think most programs, the feedback that we got was that it came out as we had predicted, that we were not going to be issuing any findings on the life safety codes. But I do hope that leadership does look at what the report that we send out, which talks about not only where the compliances are, where the non-compliances are, and if there were any deficiency identified, but in the appendix that also goes with the report, that it will talk about each of your centers, what items were identified as concerns or non-compliances, and things, again, that the boards and policy council and just leadership within a particular grantee can look at and determine whether or not this is an area that they believe needs improvement. As we move into 2016, the same will occur, I believe, when we look at the comprehensive services and school readiness, that we need to look at really what is the quality of our programs and how do we continue to increase quality to children's services. That's part of the role that all of us need to take lead in and share the responsibility for. It's at the grantee level. Regions need to be supporting grantees for success, and at the national level, we also need to be supporting regional offices so that grantees are successful. As I said last year and I've said throughout this year, Head Start wants programs to succeed. If we are on average funding grantees at $5 million over 5 years, that's $25 million. Why wouldn't we want that grantee to succeed? If a grantee cannot, or for whatever reason chooses not to, that's a different story. But our effort should be, how do we help grantees to be more successful in providing quality services to children and families? That's the piece that I'll end on from the monitoring. Now I'll go to the non-monitoring. And that is what Ann talked about, the early Head Start child care partnership grants. as was in the authorization, those grants will not be looked at from a monitoring perspective for the first 18 months. And so what we are doing are baseline visits to grantees. They are not part of our monitoring system. They are more to give us information about the current status of your program so that at the end of 5 years, we are able to show where programs were and where they are at the end of 5 years. What success did we achieve over those 5 years? We will, two of those, actually one of the baseline the visits are starting to occur. There will be roughly 250 visits made to on-site visits to grantees, and they will all be announced. Most of you, if you've not gotten contacted by our office, you should be, in terms of looking at when is a potential date that we can come out and do those on-site environmental or those baseline visits. Most visits will be 2 days or less. If it's a very large grantee, it could be a few days longer. But again, what we are out there for is to really understand where programs currently are in the operation and the beginning implementation of these grants. We will also, the same week that we are out there for the baseline visits, we'll have a call with those grantees around a baseline for understanding the fiscal part of your program, how things are going. All of this is intended to help support grantees and to provide needed TA or have you request for needed TA if so desired, and also provide an opportunity to request additional startup funds, again, if needed. Ann, is there anything you want to add to that part?
No, I think you,
okay.
No, that's fine. And I think, Ross, just to mention, you talked a lot, anyone that's going to get a 2016 visit is, is very keyed into what you were saying. But there'll be lots of rollouts and explanations. This is really a preview of what's to come.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, starting this summer, you will get probably within the next couple of weeks announcements of what we'll be doing online for programs, where protocols will be listed, how you can have office hours so that you're able to ask questions around any of the protocols and the process that we have in place. So that'll all be occurring this summer and into September.
So,
one other thing I want to say, and this is, people were, I think last year it was interesting, when and I love this statistic because it shows, or these figures, because it shows what, quite honestly, many people, and I would say probably including myself, thought might not be achieved. When we did triennial reviews in 2012, 13, and 14, we visited over 12,500 classrooms total in each of those.
Over 3 years.
Over 3 years. In 2015 alone, we visited 17,700 programs, classrooms, in terms of taking pictures, understanding what was there, so that we really are, after the next 2 years, will have a database of all Head Start classrooms throughout the country. And I think for once we'll be able to, well, I shouldn't say for once, I think we'll be able to make a stronger case to Congress for additional funds, as many facilities are getting older in age and need improvement. So I just want to thank you for your patience in having us come out, look at those, and yeah.
Well, we're going to go to our last presenter, and I'll let her introduce herself, but I do want to say a couple of comments. One, we're really happy Alana Baroff could come with us today. And she does many things within the office. She's our, if I say the Office of Public Affairs, the go-to person when anything, good news, bad news, explodes, needs to be posted, but handles all those matters so beautifully. But and she really is the driver behind what eClick provides to the large community, to the broad community today. So she's here to kind of draw our attention to eClick.
Thank you, Ann. So we have lots of new things happening on the UCLKC website. So go to the first slide. Amanda pointed out the Head Start framework is under newest resources, and when it's not under newest resources anymore, it'll be under About Head Start, and newest resources will be there. The things coming out of the national centers and the new products that Head Start is providing for our grantee community. Next slide. The news button is where we keep all of the latest IAMs, PIs, and blog posts. So just what Head Start is thinking, what the office here is producing for the grantee community, again, is the most important stuff is right there under news. Next. We just redid the Head Start Locator. The Head Start Locator is the most popular feature of the UCLKC. And we're redesigning it to be more mobile friendly because 50% of the people who use this are on a mobile device. Next. If you would like the Head Start Locator on your website to help with your recruitment efforts, you can embed it on your website just by clicking that link right there. Next slide. And then it'll show up, this little icon will show on your website, and people can enter their zip code or their state or their city or their whole address, and it'll pull up the closest Head Starts to them. Next.
That'd be wonderful for CAP agencies that have their websites for families going on, you know, during recruitment looking for a center that's close by. That's terrific.
Right, so it'll just pull up the one closest, you know, within a 5-mile radius of their house, and if that's the right CAP agency, it'll give the contact information for that CAP agency either by clicking on a button or beneath you can see, I can't scroll here, but it lists out the different centers. And this information we pull from the Head Start Enterprise System, which your programs are in charge of keeping updated. So if you don't like the information that you're seeing here, it's because it's not updated in the Head Start Enterprise System. Okay. Next, I'd like to show you the events and conferences section. This is where we update all of the information that's, all of the national conferences that are happening across early childhood field, as well as all the Head Start specific training events. So if you click onto events and conferences, here's a searchable field where you can search by date or search by state or search by region to see what events are happening that might be appropriate for your staff to go to or that you're interested in. If you search by keyword, you can look at disabilities and it'll show you all the things that we know about that are happening in the field. If we're missing anything, you can go to the top, contact us, and be like, hey, you're missing things, and we will add them to our master calendar. Up at the top link next to contact us is a button called subscribe. And if you click on subscribe, next page, you'll see all the different emails that we send to Head Start. If you're a director, an executive director, we send you maybe 2 or 3 emails a month just automatically. But if you'd like to get more information, or if you're a board member and you don't get lots of automatic emails, you can get information about any of our TA topics, our policy and news, Federal Register alerts, anything that you might be interested in. We're more than happy to serve it up to you if you subscribe for an email update. If you subscribe to all of them, you'll probably get like 19 emails a month. If you only get policy and news, you'll get like 5 emails a month. Next. I'm going to walk through some of the new products that we've put out in the last month. First is Head Start's 50th anniversary. If you look under About Head Start, that first button is Head Start's 50th anniversary. We're very excited that 2015 is the 50th year of Head Start. Next slide. We have 5 major themes. One is Head Start is a community effort, was our first theme because community partners are so crucial to how Head Start has operated over 50 years. The second theme is families are powerful partners because that's what Head Start is mostly about. Staff are the heart of Head Start is our next theme. Staff, children, and families are rooted in culture, and 32 million reasons to be proud will be about the comprehensive services that are provided through Head Start programs. Each of these themes, right now we only have 2 videos, 2 of the themes fleshed out. We're working on developing it over the course of the year. But a lot of programs have told us these videos were really good for parent meetings or partnership building meetings, and our staff will be ready in time for staff orientation here in the fall. And you can click on them and download them and show them at your leisure. We also hope that you will submit Head Start stories for each theme. We're collecting different stories about how lives have been changed through Head Start by families, by community partners, and soon how staff has grown up in Head Start and just the professionalization of the Head Start field. This is also a good time to tell you to save the date for October 14th. We'll be having a national celebration at a local level.
And I think that's different than the date I made it given folks in Portland, so this is a revised date. And we'll tell Denise why we changed the date, but we won't say it publicly.
Right, so we bumped it back a week. And it'll be we'll send you more information about it. We're hoping you'll we're inviting you to join us for a national broadcast, but for you to throw a party in your own community for Head Start's 50th anniversary. Next slide. Every month, the Career Center is in the top 5 most visited UCLKC pages. We got 30,000 visits on the Career Center last year, and so we just relaunched that. Next slide. The new Job Center makes it easier for you Head Start programs to post job announcements and for applicants to be searching through the job listings that are available to them. If you click on make up a job announcement, it'll give you a bunch of fields to fill out next. And a completed job posting kind of looks like this, where it says where's it at, what's the main field, how do people apply. We found that after we launched this on July 1st, the next day we had 100 new job postings.
Isn't that amazing? That is amazing.
And right now we have about 500 job listings, but all sorts of people are always coming to this page. So if you are recruiting for the fall, go ahead and post your early childhood jobs. If you're an early Head Start child care partner, you can post your early Head Start and your child care partner jobs because people are always looking for this. And we set it up so that the mass job sites like monster.com can search and will repost your jobs as well to get an expanded reach for our job listings.
That's why I love to come to these things, because I find out things I didn't know. I guys are looking at you. Colleen's very impressed.
Then we have a whole bunch of tabs, right? I was remiss in not posting the monitoring protocols, because if you go under, it's under monitoring and oversight, which is the furthest thing on the furthest tab on the left there. That's where we post the monitoring page, and all of the monitoring protocols are listed there. But I didn't get you guys a page for that, so you have to go and look for the monitoring protocols yourself. But the next thing I was going to show you are the program service reports. This is a little bit of an old feature, but we're always making it new because this is where we keep information on each Head Start grant available to the public. Next slide. So it's under data and reports. That's not supposed to look like that. If you go under data and reports, you can click on program service reports. You can search for your program. This is great. You can search by grant number, you can search by city, you can search by state, and pull up the different grants that Head Start has in each of those things. And if you select one, it comes up. This is the one for Action of Bridgeport Community Development in Connecticut. It lists the contact information for you, all of the delegates that are within this grant, all of the centers that are within this grant, and then all the monitoring reports and PIR information we have for this grant available to the public. Right there under centers, you can see a big blue arrow, and it says show all of these centers on the map. So if you go to the next slide, if you click on that link, We'll show all of the centers that are under that grant on a map, which I think might be helpful for some of you, again, when you're promoting the reach of your Head Start programs, because this one up in Bridgeport has quite a good reach and a lot of different centers going on. Again, this information, everything on this page is coming from HSES, the enterprise system. So if that's not updated, if the contact information is wrong, the information we're giving to the public will also be wrong. But if it's right, then people are getting the right numbers and reaching you when they're trying to reach you. Next slide. And like I said, all the reports are there. So I think this goes back to 2012, and it has the triennial report, the triennial class, and the follow-up report, anything that has to do with monitoring, so that's open to the public. And people love going on there and finding out what their local program's up to and the strengths and what they're getting when they are looking at what a Head Start is. We also do all other sorts of engagement. We're not just the eClick. We also have a Head Start app. If you download it, it has the Head Start locator, the newest resources, the hottest videos, and also a contact us. So if you have questions, you can send us emails at contact us. The app, Head Start Resource app, is available on Android and on Apple. And our July release is going to have the Head Start program performance standards on them, so that you'll have them all right there on your phone. If that's
I can see myself driving down Route 1 with my Head Start performance standards.
Hoping that's driving.
We also are on Facebook and Twitter, so if you're on Facebook or active on Twitter, you can sign up to receive our updates right there in places where you already are. And every day we post something on Facebook, and every day we do 3 things on Twitter, just things that are timely for programs or new things that are coming out of the Office of Head Start. Thanks.
Thank you. Wow, we've come a long way with our IT stuff. So we got some questions in, no surprise to anyone. They're all about the NPRM. And actually, you gave us some pretty easy ones.
Probably just because we were first. But.
All right. So why don't we, because I know we only have a couple minutes left, and we can answer these questions. And Denise, if you have some questions based on, you know, we've got until 2:30. And
we got a couple process-related questions, which thank you for that. So one was whether the 60-day comment period, so the August 18th deadline, would be the only comment opportunity, or would there be another follow-up opportunity after that? It is incredibly unlikely that there would be any other comment period. Everyone should definitely treat it that this is your opportunity to comment. Once it closes, we would be using all those comments to move to a final rule. While it isn't absolutely unheard of that the government could say, well, we need to do it another NPRM, it's highly, 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 highly unusual. I can't imagine a scenario that there would be. There have been scenarios when there's a technical glitch with the system, we say we're giving another few days, but only when there really was a technical glitch of the system. So I can't underscore enough about how much we want folks to comment, but it's such a legal process that the Office of Head Start would have no ability to say, oh, that's okay, we'll take additional comments. That would be something that would have to be, you know, a government-wide process above us. And so please do not assume in any way that there will be any other comment process. So use the process by August 18th, please send us all of your thoughtful comments. And I did, and I appreciate someone clarifying about the electronic. Obviously, I made that point a little too clear about needing it, hoping that folks could comment electronically, but uploading a PDF through the regulations.gov or the system that you linked to from the Federal Register is absolutely an electronic comment. So there's no preference that people go and type it into the system directly or upload that PDF. We have the ability to be able to search those and use those in the same way. So either of those ways are great. So thank you. And then a couple of questions, not surprisingly, the other questions we got had to do with the full day and the full year. So one question was that in the state, I'm not sure exactly, in the licensing regulations in the state that this program is in, they said that the expanded time would only add mandatory NAP and not increase any learning time, and so is there any guidance there? So it is something, certainly these are the kind of things we want to hear about in comments. We did look at a lot of program schedules to think about, if you went from 3.5 to 6, what would you likely be adding? And in most of the work that we looked at, you're really talking about adding, a full 2.5 hours there, and often, so you may be getting a nap, a meal, and another hour, hour and a half of learning time, which we think is important. I think it's things you want to hear about in comments. It also can be things where the locally designed option might make sense in some communities if there is a reason, or again, you're a program at 5.5 and to go the extra would just trigger this. I will say nap is incredibly important, and there's more and more research about the importance of sleep to children, both on the health side and on the learning and development, to really be able to do that, and particularly if folks are in a more disruptive environment when they're not in Head Start, that they may not be able to get that. So I wouldn't minimize the importance of the nap, but again, those are the kind of things we want to hear about in comments.
And Colleen, can I just emphasize that we really increasingly want programs to think about the times of day that they maybe haven't usually thought of as learning times for kids differently. So if children are at a mealtime, we know that is a really incredible opportunity to help them in terms of vocabulary, social relationships, emotional development, self-regulation, other executive function. It is really a key time of day. While they're asleep, we're learning they really consolidate things that they may have learned and experienced, but also it's not just sleep, right? It's recognizing that your body needs sleep. It's getting ready for lying down. Lots of kids don't actually go to sleep. They may be looking at a book. So having children, being more intentional about all those times of day, and again, this is a chance for me to promote the framework, thinking about what is the real learning opportunity for children during what you may have come to think of as a more routine or care-based time of day.
And I think that's in the framework clearly, also very clearly in the proposed education standards. How are you using those transitions? When you're talking about infants and toddlers, most of your day is going to be on routines and diapering, and feeding, and so you really do want to think about all of those opportunities as how that really is all promoting the development and the learning. So thank you, great question. A similar question of programs that they were in a universal pre-K state, which maybe I'm thinking has lower than 180 days requirements from the question, and that since they're in elementary schools, they wouldn't be able to stay open. So I think that's, again, the kind of things we want to hear about in comments. Also, maybe 180 is a pretty standard from what we've looked at in states, but we know there's variations. Those are the kind of things we want to hear about. You want to think about whether locally designed would make sense, or whether you want to suggest some different kind of standard than the 180. So that's definitely what we want to hear about in comments. And the first question, with the more time being required, will there be more funding? So this is a really important question. We lay out in the NPRM very clearly that the President's budget in 2016 requested funding to support these very types of quality improvements, requested $1 billion actually to support the longer day and the longer year. But the regulations do not themselves bring funding. So again, this is something that's in the President's budget, but only Congress sets our appropriations. So the President requests, and Congress actually sets the funding levels. And so we do really want people to look at that. We have estimates of the cost in the NPRM. We do want people to look at what the trade-offs would be when they're thinking about their reactions to the proposal.
Okay. That's about it in terms of questions.
That is the only questions we have gotten that I have in front of me.
So
are there any that came in? No.
I think, Denise, we have about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. Any thoughts that you have or reflections or?
Well, we would expect that you will receive probably a number of comments from community action agencies, and we would encourage the network to be thoughtful about these. Do you have any thoughts on what we as a partnership could do to try to consolidate that information? How would that perhaps look to be more effective and more efficient? Because we know you're going to possibly get reams, and you really need stuff that's going to rise to the top. And we think we could have a coalescing role around that. Any thoughts on how we could be most helpful?
I mean, I think that we would encourage that greatly, and I think in the past we've had organizations that have done a compilation and a little analyzing, and then so what's really important is at the top. I mean, I think to the extent that community action agencies would mobilize and do that would be really very helpful. I mean, one thing that Colleen did mention, but I think this is going to be a very tight turnaround. So to the extent one good comment is just as valuable as 20 the same comments. I mean, the turnaround is going to be very tight, and I think we've been very honest. We really think this is really important. These need to be finalized before the end of the administration. So there's a lot of work to do. So to the extent that you could also help us with the efficiency. We don't want to diminish at all the quality of the comments, but with the efficiency, we would absolutely welcome anything that your organization could do.
And I think just just underscored and said, one comment signed on by 10 organizations is, essential. There's no difference than 10 organizations sending in the exact same comment. So folks can really, I think, people think of it as a volume thing, but the idea that you could represent many opinions by consolidating, whether across an agency or across multiple through the partnerships. There's lots of ways that can be really helpful in saying, we've talked to all of these, and every person that they thinks this was a terrible idea, but many like this and others, to get some idea would be very helpful.
So we could theoretically submit 2 sets, something that we could, a top 10 list that we could get a number of CAP agencies to sign on to, and then a broader document that says, here's much more of a compilation of the breadth of comments that we received.
Or, yes, and I think a little bit of analysis even. I mean, and we're not suggesting we're just, you asked the question, but I can think about, it would be interesting if there are CAPs that are primarily more in rural areas, what their issues are, versus CAPs that are more in the inner city. I think any kind of insights, because we do care about those differences and honoring the uniquenesses really as it relates to the communities.
Can I ask a question? So, Colleen and Ann, does it matter, does the weight of the comment need specificity or the weight of the inputs? Do people need to say 25 CAP agencies stated that, does it matter, or can you say a lot, or is it, because, do we need to kind of?
It's not a counting game. I mean, I think, certainly if we hear the majority that you hear from all have the same opinion, it's certainly telling that this is not a unique. But also, there could be one very well thought out, laid out articulation of why something is a problem that could have just as much weight as, a million people saying something, was a problem. So there's not an exact science, obviously, but it isn't just more people necessarily is going to have more influence in what the final decisions are.
And the other thing you said, the comments are going to be public. They are public. When do they become public? And sort of in reference to this person that says, can we have any more comments, after the due date? But we will go into a silent mode, is that even though comments are public, we are in a silent mode, and so we can't be saying, oh, wow, did you,
right. The comments will become public, and we're hoping actually to start making them public later this month, those that have come in electronically, to be able to start doing that mostly as a, you want to wait all the way to the end, and then it becomes hard. So there's a system that helps us do analysis, and until they're clicked a certain way, they don't kind of get to go into that we can start doing work. And so we're hoping to start again. I don't want to promise on the timeline if we get paper comments, because that again is just more of a process-laden issue about getting those to the public interface. But we expect by the end of this month, some comments would be public, and then hopefully they'd all be public not too far after. We have put out a disclaimer in the rule that anything you put in your comments can be made public. So it's very clearly stated that do not put private information in there, do not put information. If we had to go through and look to make sure every single comment didn't have any information that would be identifying, it would take much, much longer to make it public. So we made it very clear in the NPRM, anything you say can be made public, so don't put anything in there that you would not want to be made public, so that we can do a more mass system of making them public, which is, for the transparency, what this administration has been encouraging.
Great. So I know we're winding down, and we've got a cab outside at 2:30, then sit back.
Well, just thank you very much. And we periodically will highlight eClick, for instance, in our TNCA e-news and other things, and I've already seen a few things that we can embed into our website in terms of finding a Head Start. Certainly your new document, the advice for the early Head Start Child Care Partnership document. And I think we have a lot of resources we can do a better job of putting up on our website as well. So thank you very much. At our convention in August, I know that we'll have the Office of Head Start with us, and we'll be doing several sessions on Head Start specifically. Any last advice for any trainers that are coming to us in August that we should help convey? I know one of the questions that came in says they're doing a panel on Head Start community action coming together. Any last comments about the value of how Head Start and community action work well together, as we believe the best model of Head Start in the country, but we know there are
we have said this many times before. Yeah. I mean, when Alana was talking about sort of the principles of the mission that we're driving in our 50-year celebration, I'm sitting here thinking that every cap is going, but that's us, that's us, that's us. When it is done well, Head Start programs that live within a community action agency, early Head Start programs, is the best of all worlds, because it really is a total service of the entire family, and it's seamless. And so, I just want to say that. And we value the relationship. We think, you know, if this is helpful to the community action agency community, we are most happy to be here, and we certainly learn things from our colleagues when we're here. So we didn't know before.
And the questions.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you very much, and thank you, everyone, for being on the webinar today. And we know this is an incredible investment of your time. So thank you so much for making the trip over, and we look forward to our third in our series of webinars in the next few months. So thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Thank you. Bye-bye.